What's up guys, Matt with Ginger Snaps Productions here, and today we're going to be starting a new series. First episode is going to be Texas rigs, whether that is just a simple normal Texas rig with a pegged weight, or the standard old Texas rig with the free weight, or even a weightless Texas rig. So I'll be giving y'all tips on where I like to throw these, how I like to throw them, and what I like to throw on these to catch fish. So today I'm going to be throwing 3 Texas rig presentations. I already showed you them. They're the weightless Texas rig, the old-fashioned Texas rig with the free sliding weight, and a pegged Texas rig. So that it's basically just a normal Texas rig, just you peg the weight so it doesn't move as free, or it doesn't move at all, depending on where you have your peg. And when I'm throwing a Texas rig, and over the years I've preferred the pegged Texas rig, but I'm typically fishing around trees and structure, and I don't really want that weight to be free moving and getting hung up on those trees and stuff. So what I like to do is, typically when I'm throwing the pegged Texas rig, and right here I've got a Missile Baits D-Bomb in California Love. So it's green on one side, black on the other, with red flake. And I like to peg that. Typically, I will say though, if I'm going to be fishing a worm, so on this one, I've got that Zoom Magnum worm in June Bug. And I like to have that weight free sliding, because I'm going to be fishing this off of points and flats. And I don't really care if the weight is stuck to the bait or not. It actually gives it a little more action if it's not. So that's what I like to throw. That's what I'm throwing today. We just had a big thunderstorm come through. The lake's really low, so the water's a little bit dingy. It's super hot. It's been super hot. So these fish are relating to cover more. Since the water's dingy, it's super hot, they need shade. They want cover since they can't see super well. So what I'm doing is I'm targeting trees, laydowns, and then every now and then I'll come across a point or a flat, and I'll pick up that big 10-inch worm. I'll just chuck it out there and drag it. So hopefully we can keep this series going, and I can keep this series going. Please let me know what you want to see in this series. Anything helps. I think probably my next episode is probably going to be on drop shots. I've started kind of picking up drop shots. There's definitely a bunch more I need to learn about them, but I really enjoy fishing them, so that's probably what I'm going to do next. And I hope y'all stay tuned. We'll get to start off the morning. So when I'm fishing a Texas rig, I'm trying to make targeted casts wherever I want, or I think the fish should be. So if we take this bank, for example, I'm gonna make, I mean, I've already made a handful of casts, but I'm gonna try and make targeted casts. So I already had one fish on a bank transition, and I've had a bite on wood because we had a big thunderstorm last night, so the fish, water's a little bit dingier than normal. Fish are gonna be tighter to cover. So I'm gonna make multiple casts. So I made one cast over there where the bank kind of transitions from a little bit chunkier to like a solid rock. Made a couple of casts on this tree, this lay down right here, this lay down. There's a stick in the water right there that I've made a cast to. And then when we keep coming around, there's a little bit of like a mini point almost. So the bank kind of comes out at a point. Whether or not it looks like that underwater, it just kind of gives the fish something different to sit on than just a flat bank. So if we keep going down the bank, I'm gonna make a cast kind of on the edge of this chunkier rock, and then more over here because this is more of a point. It kind of comes out. So I'm just trying to make targeted casts to where I think the fish should be sitting, and in those targeted casts I'm trying to not group one thing unless I know for sure, like the fish are sitting on trees or laydowns. I'll try to make more targeted casts to trees and laydowns, but since I'm out here, I haven't had any practice or haven't gotten out recently. I don't know where these fish are sitting, so I'm just trying to cover as much stuff as I can in these casts without just casting willy-nilly. I'm trying to make every cast count. Every cast could catch a fish. So I'm just trying to target what I think the fish should be sitting on, and then where I get the bites is going to lead me in and key me in more to where these fish are. Like that guy. Still a little guy, but it kind of gave me an idea. So I made a cast. I saw under the water, it goes from a chunky rock to more of a full rock, but there's also some rocks kind of in the water there. So that's why I made a cast there. And same thing with docks. If I've been fishing them all day, I've got an idea of where I think these fish might be on these docks. I'll target those more specifically, but haven't fished docks in actually a long while, so I have no idea if there's even fish on docks. So like I made a cast back over there to the back side of that floating piece of this dock. I made a cast straight back on both sides of this, pretty much the center pylon. And then I'm gonna make probably a cast to each corner of this section of dock. And if I thought there might be fish, which I don't really think there is, I'd even be making little pitches to the outside legs here. But I don't really think, and this is one of our really deep docks on this end of the lake, so I mean we're probably sitting in 30-40 foot, and I don't really think for some reason the fish are sitting that deep. But it tightens up really. It's a really steep bank, so it gets real shallow real quick. But I think they're sitting, especially once that sun gets up a bit more, they'll be sitting probably dead center of these docks. Any of these like middle pylons here. So if we get down and look, I just made a cast to that center pylon, so not all the way back, but about halfway, because I made a cast to that back pylon, center pylon, and I'll probably do this back pylon, just to vary it up, see if I can find where these fish are sitting on these docks. And they might not be sitting on the docks yet. Like I said, once that sun gets up a bit more, they'll be looking for that shade, so docks will definitely come into play later in the day. I don't know what that was. So I had one bluegill bite in the furthest boat slip over there about midway through it. So even though it was a bluegill and not a bass, which is what I'm targeting, I'll still make a note of it in my mind that at least the bluegills are sitting about midway on one side of the dock in particular. And we'll work off that, and we'll see what we can find. There's another bluegill. So maybe not one side of the dock in particular, but about middle of the dock is where these fish are sitting, at least the bluegills. So we'll make a mental note of that, and then when we get to this next dock, or even that one over there is a big floating dock, but we'll still make a mental note to about middle of the dock. Maybe floating docks are a little different, maybe they're closer to the bank on floating docks. We'll just keep that in mind for later. That's bacon. Worst landing job. Oh, okay. Good. That's a good one. Straight through the top of the mouth where you should have it. Right, Bink. Good Lord, he's fat. That's a good one. Big fatty. Let's get a good release on him. Straight down to the depths. That fish pretty much just brought up my other topic that I was about to talk about. You need to watch your line. One of my biggest rules when I'm fishing a Texas rig, or pretty much, mainly a Texas rig, any bottom bait really, is to watch your line. So these fish, once you've been fishing a while, you kind of get a feel for how your weight sinks. That's why when I cast, you see I'll leave a lot of slack in the line. And one, that's so I know I'm getting to bottom, because the biggest thing you want is bottom contact. And for years, I was fishing Texas rigs, and I was like, I'm not catching any fish on Texas rigs. Why am I not catching fish? Well, it's because I wasn't fishing on the bottom. So I talked to a couple of people, and they're like, just leave your reel on, spooling, and just watch it sink. And when your line stops sinking, you're on bottom. And that's just, same thing with that one. So even after I watch it sink, so I'll cast and I'll watch my line sink, and when it stops, so I'm on bottom, I'll pop or drag, and then I'll let it sink some more. And then I always am watching my line, so I'll either, if I'm letting it sink, I might miss that double tap or that single tap of a fish picking up that bait. But if I'm watching the line, and if I notice that it starts sinking faster than normal, so I mean, I'm fishing a 1/4 ounce tungsten right now, so I've got a pretty decent feel for how it sinks. But if I pop it and I'm letting it sink, and maybe once it hits bottom, it'll stop, and then I'm still watching my line, and if it starts to take off again, I know I've got a fish. That's how I knew I had that fish right there. I was watching my line, and I noticed it wasn't moving too much faster than what it would normally sink like, but it was moving faster. So I was like, pulled up on it, felt the fish, set the hook, and bam, a nice, probably 4-pounder. Make sure you set your drag. Oh, yeah. That's another decent one. Come on around the troll better, please. Boom. Another probably 3-pounder. Nice fish came on. Actually, I'll talk about my baits later. But I will talk about what I'm fishing. So, we got this giant flat. I mean, this thing is massive. And I've seen a handful of people only fish this corner of this flat. I've always wondered why. So I came through not too long ago, and I was throwing a shaky head on it, and got a handful of bites, and I was like, oh, that's weird. But I did notice while I was fishing said shaky head, there's a lot of, less on that whole flat, more on this end. There's a lot of kind of scattered out rocks, and then somewhere right out here in the middle, there's a pretty decent rock pile that I believe these fish are relating to. I didn't have my drag set. I almost ruined that. Set the hook and whew. But yeah, so no, I'm just fishing a big old flat right here, and down towards this end you can, every now and then you'll feel a rock, not a big one, kind of like riprap size, so maybe a 5 to 10 pound rock, but there's a big cluster of them kind of more over to the left of where I just cast. There's also a lot of bait on this flat. They're not popping as much after the sun gets up, but there's still a couple popping around, and there's a lot of bluegills on this flat as well. I also noticed, since we're nice and slick calm, I can see a decent amount of stuff from pretty far away. There's a school of bait back there right on that shade line. So once I get done fishing these kind of rocks, I'm gonna slide back there with the other Texas rig, that crawl style bait. Kind of pitch around there, pitch up shallow, and see if I can find anything. Little guy, but he's a little far out for my normal hook set. I probably should have hook set to the side. Probably would have had a better hookup. I can't tell if this is actually bait or if this is like fry. It's so small. I want to say this is like bass fry almost. It's so small. But there's so much of it as well. Like, I got two big groups right here in front of me. There's a group over there, there. There's a lot. Nice fish. Nice fish. Don't get a boat like that. Nice fish. Coming on down. Nice fish. Let me back off of this. That's another one probably pushing 3 to 4. Really nice fish. Got a good release. Give me a jump. Yeah. Thanks, buddy. I want to say all of this is bass fry. It just looks like it. Feel my line, see if I need to retie. I think I'm actually good.